Welcome, everyone, to the call today. We have a very exciting product that's already in the marketplace, but it's always good to rehash, go over them again, because we always learn more about it. This call is recorded, obviously, so those that would like to go back and listen to it, you can share with those. But we keep learning more and adding more, and this is just an incredible product, cutting edge. I love when we have cutting edge products coming into Agora, being on the cutting edge of what's happening out there, and this is definitely a game changer product. So we have Jim Larson on the call today. Jim, are you there?
I'm right here.
Good. If you can kind of tell us a little bit about your background, just a little bit, an intro, and then get into the product. And we have the slideshow here, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. With that, Jim Larson, thank you.
Thanks, Vince. I'm glad to be here today. My name is Jim Larson. I'm the Director of Sales for Robotic Assistance Devices. Been working with these type of equipment now for a better part of, my goodness, 2.5 years. And essentially what we're doing is bringing artificial intelligence to the security community. I'm very excited to be here with you folks today because you touch a broad spectrum of clients out in the marketplace. And what I'd like to do today is just kind of tell you a little bit, again, from a overview who we are, some of the challenges that most of the folks out there are facing in the security world, and then go into just a little bit more detail about the products and services we have. Now, I will say that this is more of an open-ended presentation. I'll stop often for questions. Please do not be shy. I think that when you ask questions, it really adds to the understanding of what we're doing here. So with that, Vince, if you had anything else you wanted to add, I'm ready to go through it.
No, let's get this going.
Okay.
Looks good.
So then the next slide is basically just an agenda for today.
No, I'm ready to go. So
I thought I just said next slides so yeah, I'll just tell you.
Oh, sorry.
Next slide, please.
I'm putting you through speaker and on just a second here. Okay, here we go.
There we go. So who we are, the challenges, some of our solutions, the dashboard which is really important. That's the web-based software solution, and then we'll talk about some use cases and have a discussion about it. If you wouldn't mind advancing. Next slide, please. This is, I kind of said this already, we started in 2016, and our first rollout was with a rolling robot. From that, we got a lot of information about what works and what doesn't, and from all of the information that we captured, we came out with what we call our Gen 2 solution, which is the security control and observation tower, and more focused information and capabilities delivered to the end user from a security perspective. We have a lot of background. Steve has been a lifelong security guy. He's a CEO, and then Matt, the VP for business development. He's also been a career security guy. So lots of industry background. And like I said, for me, I've been working with the tech for almost 3 years, and then what I bring is, of course, my sales marketing experience, and I do have quite an extensive background in systems development and implementation. Next slide, please. So, one of the things that I really want to emphasize today, team, is that what we're providing is as a market disruptor, and by that I mean it's new and different. And I think you find, as I believe you're all business development sales folks, is that when you bring something really new and different to the marketplace, there's a lot of solicitation and understanding of the products and services, which is why we're having this call today. So this is a market disruptor. What we're looking to do is make a shift away from, lower end employees that may or may not love their position. Take from a standpoint of visitor control, access control, instead of having a guy or gal sit in a folding chair by a gate, you have equipment do this. A good byproduct of that is the logs that come with it. And then, one of the things that helps security folks lose their hair is not knowing where people that are authorized to be on location that may not only be available for that that particular time, so you can keep track of visitors, guests, maintenance personnel, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So for security, some of the concerns that we've really seen are the fact when you're working with an unmanned situation, be it cameras, access control through badges, RFID, and call boxes like the blue light phones. You've seen those in parking lots. They're there, but that doesn't mean that they're being looked at all the time. For example, camera footage, of all the footage that's collected, less than 1% of that video data will ever be viewed by human eyes. So that tells you there's a huge amount of data out there, but it's not being processed. And how do you access that? So that's one of the problems that we address. And then other challenges that lead into that. If you're mounting a bunch of cameras, there's a high infrastructure cost to that. You got to put a lot of software behind it. You have to do a lot of training behind it, that sort of thing. And then when we talk, like I said at the top, when you implement artificial intelligence and software as a service, there's a resistance to adopting these, and therefore that the market is not served appropriately. So what we're trying to do now is put a solution together that addresses all these concerns in one package, and we call that our ecosystem. So before we move forward, I just wanted to stop right there, see if there's any questions so far about where we've come from and why we put this package together. Okay.
I think you're doing a good job.
All right, so next slide, please. Thanks, Vince. So now this is more specific to the end user, and you may, if those are folks of you, I know some of you have already been out talking to different potential customers. These are some of the common challenges that we face, and you'll see out there on a daily basis. Building access, people breaking into buildings. There's always a language barrier to deal with, right? May not speak English, or if you're in Canada, they don't speak French, that sort of thing. Delivery, repair personnel, I could put on a maintenance uniform and look the part and gain unauthorized access to a location. Transition area awareness, I can step into now clearly we can't do it in the restrooms, but if you're in a stairwell, you can get in there, and typically most places don't have those areas covered. And then just in terms of the customer experience, most entryways are pretty antiseptic unless you have a human there that's helping them understand, hey, where I'm looking for, Dr. ABC's office. Hey, I need my parking validated. All those sorts of little things like that will have a huge effect on the customer's experience about that particular company. Overnight is a really huge concern. Third shift, meaning midnight to 8 or somewhere in that neighborhood, 10 to 6. Those type of overnight security concerns are large, and it's difficult to find people that really want to work on the backside of the clock that way. And then in parking lots, if you have, you have a lot of little incidents, even if you see it, sometimes you're not going to be able to identify the vehicle for many different reasons. There's not enough light, that sort of thing. And that's where being able to get a discrete view of that particular vehicle's license plate will help considerably. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question quick?
No, you may not. Let's move along. No, yes, please go ahead, Jean.
No, on the previous slide, you were talking about stairwells and different places like that. So does that mean like you would put an additional like Wally or something in different stairwells so you have multiple units?
You may or you may not, and that's going to be a recurrent thing. First of all, it's a great question. It depends upon the protocols of the individual client. And I'll say it, I'll just give you a little, Gene, I talked about this before. It's very important to understand exactly what your customer needs in terms of security. They most of the times they may not know because they don't realize that this is available to them. When I say this, I mean this type of AI-based solutions. Now, for stairwells and that sort of thing, we can mount one of our offshoot products, which is called a Mac tracker, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But what you can do is you don't need cameras and you don't need any type of surveillance other than this little piece of equipment that collects the radio signal that comes from their cell phone. So now what you can do is you can know somebody or something's in the stairwell without having to put additional cameras and services in that location. Does that answer your question, Gene? Would you like me to go a little more detail on that?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So the Mac tracker, you may have a Scott in the main lobby or something like that, but then you've got Mac trackers in the stairwells or the elevators or wherever you feel you need them, and that information is recorded in conjunction with Scott?
That is correct. Very good. Yes. So what you've established is a network with cameras, with sensors, with audio controls, and with Mac trackers to give you, that's what I say, an ecosystem. Many different types of data are collected in one central location, which you can then process based on some other factors we'll talk about down the line here a little bit. So it gives you quite a powerful collection of data points from which to do your case studies. Good question. Others? It can be about anything if you know that you heard from before. All right, then I'll keep going. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're doing good. Just keep going.
All right, we'll keep going. So essentially, Gene set us up for this next slide, which if you look at the top there, you're basically taking the best performing aspects of physical security into a single platform. It's customizable for the specific needs. And really, you'll find that based on my experience and the company's experience, there really are no two similar solutions. They may be similar, but they're going to be different in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk a little bit about how we do that. Physical deterrence. The Scott is large. It's 6'8", the main one. It's going to allow you to let folks know that there's something there that's doing something, right? Now, I know that sounds kind of ethereal, but what that does is it makes people think twice about breaching a door or something if they know that there's something, they see cameras on it, some kind of new box. There's audible and visual notifications. It has a dot matrix. Well, and we'll see a little bit later here. I have a slide on the anatomy, but it can put up digital signage that you can change on the fly. It also has a connection through the cloud or the internet to allow you audible, either pre-recorded or real-time messaging. We talked about the Mac trackers. And then also can connect through there's a tablet on the front of Scott where you can do two-way communication for folks that are actually legitimately there and not sure what to do. I'm lost. I can't find the correct elevator for my floor, that sort of thing. And that's from a man guarding perspective. And then from a electronics perspective, you have a 360 field of view with the Scott. It means it has cameras on all four sides, and they connect together to give you a full view. Impossible by human standards, right? Because we only have about 190 degrees of field of vision at any one given time. No power required. Now, of course, the equipment it requires power, but it's not reliant on the power of the facility unless you want it to be. So there's a battery-powered version and a plug-in version. In the plug-in version, let's say the bad guy's smart enough to cut power to the building. It's got a backup battery and it can still communicate with the internet so long as you have a cellular signal. And the video management system that we've built and the access control system, we'll go into a little bit more detail in a little bit here, are really powerful tools by which you can discern visitors, intruders, that sort of thing. I'll stop there again. Questions? Go ahead and advance, please. So here you go. This is the suite of products for RAD, and they're available through Agora. And I'll start from the right and move to the left there. Scott is Security Controlled Observation Tower. You can see it's basically a 2-foot square by 6'8" tall. If you look on the front there, you can see the 18.5-inch tablet. That's from which you do all of your graphic user interface, right? It's a touch sensitive, just like your iPhone or your Android phone. Above that, you see a little dot. That's your facial recognition camera, and then above that is the logo, the hand with the sonic circles. That is your audio speaker, and those are all four sides. Just above that is the digital paging or the visual paging system, and then the cameras are above. And in the very top, there's a little black pump. That would be your antenna for Wi-Fi and or cellular connectivity. That's Scott. Just to the left of that is Wally. Wally is a wall-mounted version of Scott, which has all the goodness that Scott has to offer, but it's just a wall-mounted version. And because it's wall-mounted, clearly it's not going to be 360 capable. But what this is good for are entryways to buildings, foyers, that sort of thing. And you can also see here that instead of having a dot matrix visual paging system, it's got a small LCD screen that you can show videos and other important information that you would want to have at your particular location. And then behind the word Scott is the audio speaker. Okay, and then two other things. Fred is the facial recognition entry device. That's like a smaller size of Wally, and what this is essentially is using your face with a 6-digit PIN to allow entry to a door, to a gate, and very similar type entry controlled locations. And at the very bottom left corner is the Mac tracker that we talked about earlier. It's about the size of a paperback book, and you can mount those essentially anywhere. Stairwells, Gene, as you mentioned, is a really good location for that. And by the way, these Mac trackers are also, this technology is located in all the other three pieces of equipment that you see there. Any questions on the technology hardware?
Nope, looking good.
Okay.
You can just keep on moving through. Maybe just ask questions at the end, okay?
Okay, sure.
And if someone has a question, they can just type in, and I'll let you know.
Yeah. All right, let's do that then. Okay, I'll keep going, and then we can do that. Sure. And then the next slide, this is one of my favorite slides because it kind of gives you an overview, the complete security ecosystem. This is all the kind of things that you'll see in Scott, right? And there's really several layers. There's the blue, the orange, and the green. And so the reason why we do this is because depending on who you are in a chain of managing the system, you may have a better or a different need within that system. So, for example, if you look at, I don't know if you can zoom in on that at all. That's okay. So the basic functions include like video surveillance, human detection, long-range paging, and video calls. Those are the things we talked about earlier that's available for Scott. Then we have the specialty security functions like the visitor management. And we'll go a little more detail on that a little bit here. Mobile capabilities, meaning that we have an app for your phone that you can use the information from Scott and you manipulate it. You can view it, manipulate it, and so forth right through your phone. The fact that it's cloud controlled, you can put it anywhere. You can put it in the middle of a field so long as you have a cellular connection. And we talked about Mac trackers and the address for being on the lookouts, and that's in the orange column for specialty. And then additional functions, we talked about digital signage, unique human counting, and that's used through the Mac tracker where the piece of equipment can tell how many folks have been in that location on a given time, so you can build heat maps, that sort of thing. So for your retail customers, this would be a really, really attractive feature as well. Other custom content for your clients. So because it's all web-based through the cloud, you can manipulate this real time. You can put any website you want to have on there, whether it be Agora's website, whether it be your end user's website. This is all accessible through Scott, and it's just like having any other cellular-based piece of equipment in your hand, whether it be a tablet or a phone, that sort of thing. Next slide. So now we've talked a little about that. I'll just review. We kind of went over this, but here it is again. This is Scott, the anatomy. Like I said at the top, you see the antenna all the way down. Now, one thing I did want to mention here that I didn't mention earlier, at the bottom third of the Scott, that's what contains your battery packs. If it's a plug-in version, there will be a smaller unit. There'll be one battery that will last for up to, I believe, we've got up to 48 hours now, so which is great. If it's a battery-powered unit, then it has 4 inline lithium-ion batteries, and that'll last up to 10 days. And if you have a battery-powered unit, they're delivered with 2 battery packs, and they're both portable, and it's very simple to remove and replace them. Now, I will say, and I think you all may already know this, though, the battery power is more expensive than the plug-in version simply because it's more maintenance to maintain them. Next slide. So here's a little more information on Wally. I mentioned to you that this is a smaller version. This is a kind of a screenshot of one of our marketing brochures. But here again, it's very similar to Scott in terms of what capabilities are. You can see much up a little more closely at the LCD screen at the top, and that's Wally. Now, the interesting thing about Wally is that this version doesn't show you what we're calling Scott 180, is that has now, based on feedback from customers, we're mounting cameras on the side of Wally to get a true 180-degree depiction of any location where Wally resides. Can't see through walls yet, but what we can do is see from wall to wall, and that'll really help your situational awareness wherever it's located. Next slide. So this is an overview of all the technical capabilities, and I don't need to go through all these again, but I do want to just show you in visual form that there's quite a bit of technical capability behind. And why is this important? Because you're going to have so many different use cases. You really going to, it's good to know what it can do so that you can adjust your presentation to that particular customer. Obviously, if you have a access gate situation in a trucking company, is going to be much different than an HOA in a residential complex. So this allows you to pick and choose between all the capabilities that we have with our equipment. Next slide, please. All right, so I would like to just take a quick pause there because I'm going to go a little more detail of the visitor management system, because this is something that's new and has been very well received by customers. So just general questions to this point.
Yeah, Troy had a question. Troy, you there? He had a question about case of natural disasters. Troy, are you there? You want to ask that question? Are you on mute?
Sure. I was. So, yeah, if there was a natural disaster and cell service was down, so all normal means of communication were gone and it's on battery power, is it still recording everything around it? Is it minimized in any way? And then how long does it save the material?
Great question. That is a great question. And the answer to those, I'll go one by one on. So let's say there's a natural disaster. You have a Scott unit in the parking lot of a, I don't know, high-value location, whether it be, say it's a distribution center with a lot of high-value equipment inside. So if it's a, let's just say it's just a battery-powered version. The battery-powered version depends on how long it stays active, depends upon when you last changed the battery. So let's say we changed it 3 days ago. So we assume we have essentially about a week left with zero power on it. The next thing that we would want to know is, do we have cellular capability to that particular location? If there's an earthquake or something and knock down all the cell towers, we may not be able to communicate with that particular vehicle, unit rather. So, however, it's still recording all that information. It's got a 1 terabyte drive on board. It can hold up to 2 weeks of data on board. That includes all the video as well at 1080p, high resolution. So it will all be there. You can't access, if you don't have cellular connectivity to the unit, we cannot communicate to deliver that over the air, but it will still be resident on the machine. Thirdly, once cellular contact is reestablished with it, assuming we've lost it, then you'll be able to continue as if nothing happened. You can then go and see your live feeds again. Anything else that you wanted, that data you wanted from there, based upon it. And I think, what else did you ask? How long is it available? So go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's it.
Yeah, well, I did want to say, I think you said this too, is that how long is it resident on that hard drive? As long as you have it there. So if it goes more than 8 days, though, it'll go back and start to overwrite what you've had previous to that, depending how much data you have available.
Okay.
What about fire and water damage?
So it's not impervious to fire or water, although it is resistant to both. It's more resistant to water than fire, so you could burn it down. However, because there's always a telemetry link, anytime that heat gets to a certain level, RAD will be notified, because we're monitoring all this equipment on a telemetry feed, so we can then alert the end user or Agora, however we have it set up, to go and find out what's up with that unit. If it's a rapidly increasing heat, I think they were working on a automatic shutdown of the equipment, but currently there's no anti-fire device mounted within. That's something else I know they've been working with too.
Gotcha. Ryan, you got a question also? You there?
Yep.
I'm mute or not. Yeah, Ryan, what's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, want to make sure I wasn't on mute. So just to start, I mean, this is great stuff, but this is way over my head. I mean, I'm still at the point that I'm struggling going into Best Buy and trying to figure out what cameras for my own house. But as I listen to this, I'm still trying to think of how can this fit in with a lot of my current clients. And one of the things that I do outside of Agora, Vince and I have had this conversation, is I sell Wi-Fi analytics. And a lot of my clients are dealerships. And I think that this would be a perfect fit with that as well, because my system, when you come onto a dealership property, the Wi-Fi automatically tracks that person. And we create a complete map. We create a map of the dealership, and it follows where customers go. From a security standpoint, if there was and of course any dealership now is going to have security cameras, but have you done any integration work with other softwares, with other platforms, where if my Wi-Fi system is tracking someone, and say someone comes onto a dealership that is coming on during non-business hours, and there's some sort of a security part that's going on that, say, my Wi-Fi system picks up, that your security system, that the two of them work together to focus in on I mean, someone could be going after a car that's way off in the back in the dark or whatever. Is there a way for both systems to work together?
Well, first of all, that's an amazing question as well, and the short answer is yes. The RAD system is agnostic, meaning it can work with any video management system that you might have on the location. Most car dealerships usually have some type of video management system. It may not be something like Milestone or Genentech or Linnell, which are some of the top ones that are out there, but we can easily integrate with their particular system. Now, in terms of the capabilities to track someone that's in the dark corners, that you don't have the light for cameras, this is where the Mac trackers come into play, and it doesn't even have to be back in that corner. So let's say that there's some cars that are back near a wall, and you can't see them with the cameras, and if they could, it's too dark. The Mac tracker would notice that there's somebody there after hours at some point. You're going to have a choke point on that location, and then that can alert your loss prevention team that there's something or somebody there where they're not supposed to be. Now, part of the artificial intelligence analytics that all our equipment provides does just that. It says, okay, I've been told by my my human counterparts that if I see any movement or if I recognize a human vehicle on the premises after 10 p.m., I'm supposed to notify this person, either by text message, by phone, could be the police, depending on how your end user has their protocol set up for security. So that's why I got to say it all depends upon the needs of that particular customer. Now, if you've worked with a lot of these and you're doing Wi-Fi, our equipment is either Wi-Fi based or cellular based. We default to cellular based because in the cellular, there's no interference with their existing IT solution. Why do we do this? Well, this takes out the protests by a lot of the IT folks like, well, it's going to be difficult for integration, we can't do this, whatever. But because it's a web-based solution, you don't have to have Wi-Fi, okay? Now, if you do want Wi-Fi, and it sounds like to me because you provide products that are Wi-Fi-based analytics, you can easily integrate this equipment into your existing solution. Does that answer your question, Ryan?
It answers my question. My understanding of it is still, but this is a conversation that I think I'd love to have with you, sidebar.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Later on.
Okay, right. So let's talk just a little bit more about the understanding the tech. You really don't need to understand the tech. Just to understand the concept. The tech will come behind that. You know, I've worked closely with Gene Malin for a while now, and Gene, you may want to explain to them if you'd like to, that I'm available to when we get to the tech stuff. That's where I come in. Gene, did you want to add any comment to that about how we were able to basically market and start to qualify leads without the tech piece of it?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to get the interest based on the emotion and the things that are going on, protection, cost, that sort of thing. And then they'll start asking all the technical questions. So that's when we get involved with Jim and then set up a demo. And like he said, one of the first things he said was each situation has something in common, but each situation it has its own specific needs. So you're not going to be able to answer 100% of the questions. That's why we get Jim and his team involved for the technical and more specific. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yes. No, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And Jim's information is in the back of Agora under the contact page. We have his email and his phone number there.
Yep, and you just let me know, and we'll set it up. So if you're uncomfortable with the tech piece of the sales, I'm right there to schedule that with you. If I'm not available, either Matt or Steve, or there'll be someone else that can fill in for that. All right.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Circling back to this disaster stuff for just a second, think the fires up in Paradise, substantial amount of airborne smoke and dust and, you know, all that stuff that was going on for a while. How pervious to or impervious to that type of airborne particulates are your units?
Great question.
And kind of what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is either to businesses or to law enforcement, selling them to handle these evacuation zones, and then put these monitoring devices in monitoring, homes, businesses, areas, whatever, for illegal access or for looting or wherever you got.
Yes, that's a great use case. Now, first of all, they're not impervious to anything, whether it be water or heat or whatever, but they are resistant to all the above. I think more importantly, there's a bit of a offshoot to your question is the fact that you can put these in places that are hazardous to human health, right? Chemical areas, or there's high danger, or whatever it might be, extreme heat or cold. You can put this equipment out there to maintain that monitoring for either a fire watch or whatever, where humans really can't be, or you don't want them to be, right? You want to protect the human life. So You can extend your monitoring capabilities. You can also set up a perimeter for a given location to keep people out. Because this equipment has the ability to detect humans and detect vehicles, if someone tries to sneak in past, curfew, whatever, in a restricted location, they will be notified. They will be detected and reported to whatever authority that you have in your protocols. Now, in terms of keeping people safe, like I said, it doesn't require oxygen to run these things. As long as you have a cellular connection, then these will be effective.
Hi, this is Mike Driggers. I got a question on that. Is it possible for someone to put sponsor ads on the outside of the unit?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that is another. Yeah, you guys are spot on today. So we do have customers that defray the entire cost of their Scott unit by putting advertising and selling that as advertising. One of the locations is an amusement park we have in the Atlanta area, and they're testing that right now, where they're putting ads. I think they're using, Coca-Cola and one or two others to basically eliminate their direct cost for the units on premises. And then not only that, but because of all the tracking capabilities, they can get a pretty good estimate of how many eyes are on to that particular location, so they can get metrics on the effectiveness of their advertising. And then to add, even go deeper than that, you can put on the interface through the tablet. Like I said, remember I said you can put custom content. You can go right to that website and order whatever. So let's say it's a steak place. You can go make reservations right there on the unit that's being advertised for that evening. So hey, after the game, come and because we have some arenas too. After the game, come over to Joe's Steakhouse. If you reserve through this tab, it's an automatic 10% discount. That'll drive traffic to your location. Now, and because it's been done through the Scott, you have the analytics of who it was. You have a picture of the person. How many people for reservations, so you can get lots of analytics for the marketing side.
Great.
Good question. That's a good question.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, Gene.
Hey, for the advertising, is it that individual business that's going out and selling that advertising on that unit? I mean, how do they determine pricing and all that kind of stuff?
That's up to them. Negotiate it. It's really, if I have Jim's auto garage, I can go out to say, hey, you guys are local restaurants around here. How much are you paying me? I'm gonna sell space on these. I have 4 spots, and it's gonna cost you X amount a month, and it's really up to the individual or the end user.
That's beautiful. Yep, gotcha.
All right. We got to move along here just a little bit. I want to save time at the end for more questions. So this is just a little more technical, and the reason why I wanted to focus on this a little bit because just to give you an idea of some of the other things it can do. So this is the visitor management system. Now I mentioned earlier to you that the equipment can help for control and access to a location. You can see here, this is just basically a depiction of, on the right you see a list of names. And then you have on the left, just like you would have a badge for work, it uses an RFID or some type of identification, a mag stripe or something like that. You have a picture associated with that person in the system. Now, if it's employees, you probably have pictures already in your database associated with their names. If they're a visitor, you probably do not. So one of the features of our equipment is that you can register on site. What does that mean? You go to the unit and you get your picture taken right there. So you get all the information entered into the database real time. And from that point forward, you're a registered visitor at that location. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go. This is just an example of what I want you to focus on here are a couple things. Number one, this is for, at the very bottom you see some pictures. This is access control for a truck gate. All right, and there's pictures of what the gate looks like and everything. And then and if you look on the right side, you see two Fred units mounted on a gooseneck pole, one for car level and one for truck level. This allows you to go up to it, use your face and a 6-digit PIN to allow entry through the gate that you see there just below the Fred units. And this is really just an algorithm of how it goes through and verifies your identity, but suffice to say that what it does is it allows you to use your face and your 6-digit PIN of an authorized visitor to gain access to your location, and it's all recorded digitally. All right, time in, time out, all the requirements for delivery locations is already done for you here. And then at the very top, I just want to put a quick little depiction here of how the information moves into the cloud and then to wherever you want it to go. So if you're a yard manager at this location and you were expecting a delivery from FedEx at 8 a.m., when that person shows up at the gate, let's say Jim, me, I'm the FedEx driver, I have my facial recognition data in this system. I go up to the Fred, it gets my information, delivers to the cloud, and then because of the protocols for this particular location, it goes to the field manager's, or excuse me, the yard manager's cell phone. Bing, Jim Larson from FedEx has arrived on site at 8:01. So you know that I'm there, and then the system lets me in. And it's also recorded. So then you'll know, then you'll be looking for me to be there if that's what your protocols are. And also a byproduct of this, all this information is also available to your security center. So not only from an operations standpoint do I have control of all that information, so does the security team. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think he hit advance here because it's got some, there you go. So that's just some, I wanted to show you some solutions that are available right away. We talked about a lot of these, but I just wanted to go just to remind you. Lobby and elevators, we can provide help through the interface there. Audit and visitor logs, talked about the Mac trackers and the video management system for access control and how we can integrate with any of those. You can also give them situational awareness through maps, directories, any other customer content. So that's the first immediately deployable solution. Next, please. Facial recognition for employee access, and we just talked about this. It's very customizable to however you want it, how much information you need. If you need more than just information on their face, you can have it managed through the system. Also, if you require them to read safety rules and sign a form, you can do it digitally through this as well. Next one. High security, we talked about this with the yard in the back there. So if you have a visitor management system, we can integrate into that. And the question was asked earlier, we can integrate directly in. If you see the bottom right there, everything's through a database, depending on the customizable information required by that particular customer. Next one. So then I just wanted to show you here. This is the software interface that you see. Everything's moving to the cloud. You may notice now that most of if you use Office, everything's cloud-based. We don't have to download the software to your computers anymore. You can access it from anywhere. So if you're the manager for a particular location and you're on vacation, but you want to check in and see how everything's doing, you can do that from anywhere, which is an advantage here. It's also very secure, and we use the latest encryption, and we use Azure Cloud from Microsoft to manage all this in the cloud. Another feature about this I think is a big advantage. It's not usually talked about is that it's multilingual. You can change it to Spanish. You can change it to French. That typically covers North America. And because it's web-based, you can scale it from, let's say you have a small customer that has 3 or 4 data points required. You can scale all the way up to that has like hundreds of locations across the United States. And then up on the right there, this next slide actually. Next slide, please. So the tablet on the Scott, we call it RadGuard. There's all the controls that you can see that it does, and then there's your mobile sock, which is on your on your phone or your tablet. You can do everything, pretty much everything you could do from your computer on your phone. You can take calls, you can send audio alerts, you can manipulate the digital paging system right from your phone. Next slide. And so, which is the facial recognition entry system, identity authorization. Here's just a little more detail on that. 6-digit PIN plus your face, and then you can basically conform to whatever needs are for that particular customer. And because it's all digitized, it's all recorded without human having to fill out an Excel spreadsheet. One more slide. And there we are. That's us. I appreciate your time today, folks. I'm here for more questions for another 15 minutes.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, Troy.
Who would you say are some of kind of the low-hanging fruit of potential clients?
I guess it depends on your market. I mean, I think there's where you're located, but logistics centers, shopping malls, any HOA-based location with a lot of people. There's data or information is required for in and out. Car dealerships is another good one. Places that have a limited budget, but they have higher security requirements. Shopping malls where there's a lot of activity in parking lots. You can find locations where there's a lot of accidents in certain locations just because of the way that the parking lot's set up as blind spots. You can eliminate a lot of the he said, she said, or he said based upon where you locate the equipment. Things like that. So it's really, I don't want to say anywhere, but it depends upon in your particular marketplace where you would find these type of locations.
Thank you.
And it's cost effective because, and it's also better than having a human because a human could fall asleep, human error, things like that. So it does a much better job, and it's also recording things.
Yeah, it's recording everything, and then the price point is, typically your lower security guard that requires just having a heartbeat will cost you quite considerably more than any of this equipment would.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, this is Jean. Hey, between Fred and Wally, Fred is the facial recognition. What features does Fred have that Wally has, or what does Fred not have that Wally has?
Fred is really a subset. Fred is only facial recognition.
Okay.
So that's really what it focuses on. Remember, Wally is basically a smaller version of Scott without the 360 capability or the digital paging system. Fred is supposed to focus specifically on access control.
Okay, good. Any other questions out there? Also very informative. I learned a lot myself just listening to this one. So very good call. This is some cutting edge technology, and you can make some good commissions on there. The commission structure is located and the pricing is in the back of Agora. And like I said, you can call Jim if you have any questions. You want to close the deal out. Jim's 100% available. His number and his email is right there on the screen. Can help you. And Ryan, it might be a good idea if you call him separate, like you're saying. Talk to Jim, ask him some other questions because those car dealerships, it could be a really big deal, especially working a lot of them. This is a great product, can save them some money and do better coverage. So with that being said, I think we did a good job today. Jim, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Happy hunting out there.
Have an incredible product.